When the skies tremble and the waters glow, the old prophecy stirs. For millennia, it was a tale whispered by the wind, a legend etched into the forgotten stones of a world that had moved on. They spoke of a time when the balance would falter, when the arrogance of mortals would scar the very earth they walked upon. In that time of imbalance, the heavens themselves would weep crimson tears, and the rivers, the lifeblood of the land, would run not with water, but with liquid gold. This was the sign, the precursor to an event so monumental, it was believed to be mere myth. The storm was not just weather, it was a herald. Each crack of lightning was a syllable in an ancient tongue, a language of power long dormant. Every rumble of thunder was the heartbeat of a slumbering god, slowly, deliberately, beginning to beat once more. The prophecy foretold that from the depths of eternity, from a slumber as deep as the abyss itself, the Serpent King would rise. He was the keeper of secrets, the guardian of the elemental fury that birthed the world. And as the storm gathered over the desolate ruins of his once great temples, the air grew thick with an energy unseen for ages. It was the scent of Ozo, of wet earth, and of something else, something divine and terrifying. The age of myth was ending. The age of the god was about to begin. The world had forgotten its master, but the master had not forgotten his world. The signs appeared, subtle at first, then with undeniable force. On the muddy banks of sacred rivers, where children once played, intricate, serpentine patterns emerged overnight, etched into the soil as if by an unseen hand. They were the ancient marks of the Naga, symbols not seen since the dawn of history. Monks, cloistered in their mountain monasteries, awoke from shared nightmares, their faces pale with a primal fear. They spoke of a great shadow moving beneath the world, of a voice that echoed not in their ears, but in their very souls, speaking of renewal and retribution. The temple walls, which had stood silent for centuries, began to weep a strange, phosphorescent dew. The stone carvings, depicting the great serpents of legend, seemed to shift in the flickering lamplight, their chiseled eyes, once cold and lifeless, now pulsed with a faint, emerald glow, watching the frantic movements of the acolytes below. Panic, a seed of chaos, began to sprout in the hearts of the wise. They knew what these portents meant. The seals were breaking. The cosmic locks that held the Serpent King in his watery prison were dissolving, not by an outside force, but by the world's own desperate need for order. The Guardian was stirring, roused from his eons-long sleep by the dissonance of a world out of tune. The symbols were not a warning. They were an announcement, a declaration that the slumber was over, and a great, terrible awakening was at hand. It is said the Serpent King was never truly vanquished, merely quiescent. He was not destroyed by the forgotten wars of gods and men, but had willingly descended into the sacred waters, a realm between realms, to wait. He slept beneath the world, a silent, coiled titan, his consciousness woven into the very fabric of nature. Now, as the prophecies converged, the waters of the sacred lake began to boil, not with heat, but with raw, untamed power. A golden mist, thick as smoke, rose from the surface, obscuring the world in a shimmering, ethereal shroud. From the center of the swirling vortex, the water began to churn, spiraling upward against all laws of nature, forming a liquid pillar that reached for the storm-racked sky. And then, from within the mist and the maelstrom, he emerged. A head, larger than any mountain peak, surfaced from the depths. Scales of obsidian and emerald, each the size of a warrior's shield, shimmered with captured lightning. Water cascaded from his colossal form like 1,000 waterfalls. He was not a beast. He was a living embodiment of the earth's power. His eyes, two burning suns of molten gold, opened for the first time in an age, and in their gaze was the wisdom of creation and the cold fury of a forgotten god. He breathes again, and with that first, ancient breath, the world itself held its own. The Serpent King had returned. The world has forgotten its guardians. In their pursuit of progress, humanity had grown deaf to the whispers of the earth. They poisoned the rivers, tore down the ancient forests, and fractured the lines of power that once held the world in perfect harmony. They saw themselves as masters of the land, not its children. The balance, a delicate and sacred pact between mortals, and the primal forces of nature was broken. And so, the Serpent King rises, not in blind rage, not with a desire for conquest, but to restore what men had so carelessly destroyed. His awakening is a force of correction. Where the rivers were choked with filth, they now surge in cleansing floods, washing away the impurities and reclaiming the land. Villages built on sacred ground are swallowed by the rising tides, as nature, emboldened by its master's return, takes back its territory. Through the torrential rain, his children slither forth. Legions of serpents, from the smallest vipers to great river pythons, move with a singular purpose, guided by the will of their king. They are not invaders. They are gardeners of a wild and untamed world, agents of a great and necessary reset. This is not destruction. This is a recalibration, a painful, terrifying, yet essential act of healing, orchestrated by a power that understands that sometimes a world must be broken before it can be made whole again. The earth itself trembles, not in fear, but in reverence, as its true sovereign reclaims his throne. The Naga's will, a current of immense power, flows once more through the arteries of the planet. The rivers, once listless and polluted, now run with purpose, their waters turning a brilliant, incandescent gold as they are sanctified by his presence. This divine energy surges through the ancient ley lines, reawakening the dormant magic of the land. It flows into the foundations of the forgotten temples, causing their runes to blaze with emerald light, and their structures to hum with a power that could level mountains. From the storm clouds above, crimson lightning strikes the highest peaks, not to shatter them, but to infuse them with celestial fire. And the king himself, a being of pure elemental force, uncoils his magnificent form. He wraps his body around the spine of the world, his coils encircling entire mountain ranges, his head rising above the clouds. He is no longer just a legend. He is the landscape. He is the storm, the flood, the earthquake. The will of the Naga now flows through river, lightning, and flame. And under his gaze, the world is being remade in his own ancient and powerful image. The age of man is over. The era of the serpent has begun. He has returned. The storm rages, the waters churn, and in the heart of the tempest, a golden head rises from the clouds, a silhouette against the chaos. His eyes, glowing through the mist, are not filled with malice, but with a profound and eternal purpose. He did not come back to conquer the fleeting empires of mortals. He came to remind the world of a truth it had long forgotten. Gods never truly die, they only wait. They wait for the balance to shift. They wait for the world to remember. They wait for the moment they are needed once more. And now, that time has come. The king lives.